I want to get this started. Now, I have to tell you that I'm deeply honored to stand here to moderate the carbon-14 discussion, but I'm obviously not really qualified to contribute much to it other than maybe some general basic knowledge. So I'm going to depend on some of the people that are here that are far more knowledgeable about C14 and the dating of the shroud to actively participate, and Joe will have the microphone. But when Bill sent me this, he said, now look, he says, I can't be there, but I wanted to send a message. And so if everybody's ready and everybody's rolling their tapes, Alan, you're ready to roll and everybody's ready? You're, okay, because I'm going to go ahead and punch this up. You might want to get this on tape, Alan, because it's Bill being Bill. If all goes well, we'll hear it, of a message from Bill Meacham.
Hello, everybody. Greetings to all the Shroud faithful gathered at Columbus. I'm really very sorry that I can't be there in person, but I'm certainly there in spirit and in this kind of electronic presence. One of these days we'll hopefully have video conferencing so people all over the world can join in. I prepared this PowerPoint as a very basic outline of the C14 issue, just to lay out the parameters for a good discussion session. There's of course much to be said for and against every scenario, so I hope the session will be a fruitful one, and I'm looking forward to hearing the recording that Russ is making of it. Now y'all have a good one, and I hope to see everyone at the next Big Shroud Conference, maybe in Italy in 2010. Bye for now.
So, do I need to read these aloud? Should I? Okay, the conundrum then. Preponderance of evidence indicates the shroud is not medieval, but from antiquity. C14 dating is the only significant evidence against that conclusion. The assumption that the shroud is indeed from Roman times and around 2,000 years old, a hypothesis that most shroud researchers would agree with. How then to explain the C14 date? Several scenarios have been proposed, and these can be grouped into three broad categories. One, natural factors such as contamination, isotope exchange, or repair. Two, a supernatural event, the resurrection, having an impact on the cloth's C14 content. And three, conspiracy theories involving switching of samples. How about, well, I think, okay, the question was, did they screw up and cut the wrong piece? And that would be under, I guess I would put that under natural factors, because there was nothing supernatural about that, so I would assume that would be considered natural. So now he goes through the scenarios. Resurrection scenario, the strengths, it allows for unknown or extremely rare processes like radiation, coronal discharge, neutron bombardment. Was he here? Meacham, was he here today? That might have enriched the C14 content of the cloth, giving it a younger radiocarbon age than its actual age. And the weaknesses of the theory are, boy, thanks, Bill, appeal to, you pronounce it for me. There's somebody here from... Thank you very much. Outside the scope of science, also the striking and unlikely coincidence of the C14 date with the first well-documented historical appearance of the shroud. The contamination scenarios. The strengths are known as a general problem in C14 dating, a long history of the cloth in different environments. The weaknesses, large amount of contaminant as a percentage of the sample, 50% or more would be necessary, should have been detected with the array of tests the cloth has been subjected to. The isotope exchange theory. The strength is it provides a credible, in theory, avenue for enrichment of the C14 in the cloth. And the weaknesses is it has not been demonstrated experimentally. Insufficient available carbon, for example, in the air to substantially alter the C14-C12 ratio in the cloth. The repair-reweave hypothesis. Strengths, a credible explanation of the late C14 date and anomalies in the test area tested. The weaknesses, doubt about the feasibility of even expert reweavers to produce a truly invisible repair that would escape close examination by textile experts. Too bad he wasn't here today. Absence of any historically proven examples of such a reweave, and by the way, if we can find another one of those books, we should send one to Bill, the Invisible Reweaving book. Conspiracy theories. Strengths can explain the erroneous date, inconsistencies in data recorded at the sample taking and at the labs. The weaknesses, it requires unlikely collaboration of many parties, impugns the integrity of scholars that were involved, and there's no clear motive for it, which I think makes good sense. And he changes the color on us to point out that nothing can be ruled out. It is important to note that none of the scenarios described above can be definitively ruled out. The conspiracy and resurrection theories, by their nature, would be almost impossible to falsify. Of the three natural scenarios, the reweave hypothesis appears to have the most support at present. Okay. Apparently, Dan Scavone liked that. But nothing is proven either. The reweave hypothesis has major problems and has been rejected as impossible by several textile experts. Several or one? One. Ironically, it is the easiest by far of the three scenarios to prove or disprove simply by dating other samples from elsewhere on the cloth. Makes sense. Testing for contamination, any new sample should be thoroughly scrutinized prior to dating. 3 samples from different parts of the cloth would reduce to almost nil the possibility of heavy, undetectable contamination across the entire cloth. And testing for isotope exchange, similarly, it is unlikely that a massive isotope exchange could have occurred across the entire cloth. Sampling should focus on a charred to scorched to pristine area to examine the possibility of heat-related enrichment. Makes sense. In sum, in bright pink, Bill has a great sense of humor. For those who don't know him, this should be pretty good evidence. The C14 date remains a huge problem for proponents of the shroud's authenticity. There are relatively straightforward tests that can be done to confirm or rebut the original dating. The Church has thus far been unwilling to provide any samples for such tests, and the matter has incredibly remained in limbo for the last 20 years. What can be done? Perhaps a resolution passed by acclamation at this conference calling for new C14 dating to test the 3 main scenarios to be sent to Turin and the Vatican? Question mark by Bill. And that's it. That's what Bill gave us. So, I'm not quite sure how to proceed, other than I'm sure there are people who have opinions on all of these various scenarios, and I think maybe one of the frustrations that I have in having to stand here in place of Bill is if Bill had been here, he might have wanted to amend some of his comments today.
I think that's the big thing, Barry, is that Bill was not here.
Oh yeah, well, if we're gonna, sure.
I'm sorry, but and maybe it's because I'm really tired and I want to get to the point on things, but I think the problem is that Bill wasn't here.
Right.
And I think a lot of this stuff is superfluous. Discussions about, and the fact is, and Bob knows my favorite thing to say now is, you know, if you want orange juice, you have to squeeze an orange. You don't squeeze an apple. And basically what was tested was a cotton sample. And if that wasn't made clear today, then, you know, that's,
Then I don't know what.
I don't know what.
Yeah, Joe.
I wasn't really clear on this earlier, and perhaps other people weren't either. The Los Alamos results today, did they reflect the fact that the actual thread that was subjected to carbon-14 dating was a reweave, or did they reflect the fact that another thread in that batch someplace was a reweave? Which is the answer?
I think that the answer is that another thread in that area proved to be anomalous in cotton.
Okay.
Because the original carbon dating protocol, and Paul Maloney or someone more knowledgeable might correct me if I'm wrong, the original protocol called for chemical analysis of the samples before they were destroyed in the carbon dating process.
That's correct.
Okay. The 3 laboratories chose not to do that chemical analysis. And I remember when Luigi Ganella was asked why, the answer was expediency, which was the most phenomenally amazing answer I've ever heard when you're dealing with perhaps the most important relic of Christianity, that suddenly expediency becomes the priority. But in the end, what I found out, if I may, just this last point, that they could not find another herringbone weave to give them as a control sample, so they could all look at the samples and know which one, only one they got that was herringbone weave had to be the shroud. So they said because of that, they really didn't need to do chemical analysis. But, you know, I'm not a chemist, so somebody who knows more about it than I do might speak up. But as far as I'm concerned, you can't do chemistry with your eyes. Walter McCrone tried, and look where it got him. And so I personally think that one of the great flaws in the radiocarbon dating was the fact that they didn't follow their own protocol.
So we're making an inference, nevertheless, protocol or not, we're making an inference here that the date was a doubt because another sample in the same batch
Adjacent.
was adjacent to it, but not necessarily that.
Well, remember that in Rogers' thermochemical active paper, he had a piece of the actual reserve cut for radiocarbon dating.
Yes.
He had an actual reserve. It was consistent with all of the things he found, and we saw today about the Reyes sample. Consistent. In other words,
Keep in mind, we had more than one.
I have to say something after, but I wanted to say now something about the presentation of Barry. There was written that 14C is a problem for us now. For me, it is not a problem because the statistical analysis are wrong. There are errors in the natural report. I have underlined them in my sheet that indicate that the dating is not acceptable. And this calculation comes not from me, but from many other researchers that demonstrate that these results are not acceptable from a statistical point of view.
Giulio,
This is the point.
can I ask you a question then? If they had done the chemical analysis as their own protocol called for, is it possible that they might have discovered that this was actually not linen, or that there was contamination of cotton mixed with the linen? Had they done that?
The results show for the moment that the sample was contaminated. By what, I don't know. We must discover.
We say we don't know. Well, the point is, the dates are irrelevant.
We do know, Julia. We do know what it was contaminated by. The fact is whether or not you want to accept that, that's the issue. The whole dating point of the 1260 to 1390, the fact that the statistic, it doesn't matter because you were dating an apple and you were trying to date an orange. So it doesn't, it's inconsistent.
Can I show you?
Take the microphone. Oh,
I wanted to show.
Here. This isn't 20 minutes, right?
Yes. Only to show.
Not 20 minutes, Giulio. Too much. We only have an hour and a half.
Because this is an important point of view.
Okay. Just as, not a long lecture. This is supposed to be discussion. We're working on it, folks.
Let's do this.
Which one?
See.
C14 new? C14.
Yes.
Nuovo?
New.
Nuovo.
Nuovo. Bravo.
I know a little bit. Like, momento.
Thank you. We jump the first part that it is printed in the paper, and I want the questions I wanted to underline have been sent to Michael Tite. Obviously, no answer. If no clarifying answer will be obtained, a new radiocarbon date is necessary. At least part of the 14C area was not a medieval patch, as you see here, but because of the old water stain. But as you well know, here is the area that it was dated, and here is a sample at Fondazione 3M that it perhaps can be dated. if we want, we have the access probably to this sample. It is very interesting because if we see, jump this and this, this is the sample dated, Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona, and these are a possible disposition of the results. We see that we have 200 difference between Oxford and Arizona. This is well in agreement with Walsh data that you well know, that are not compatible each other. You can well see that this result is not compatible with this. And only this is the demonstration, the statistical demonstration, that there is, the sample is not homogeneous. There is a contamination. Are they weaving another thing? We don't know. But there is a contamination.
Yeah,
So-
but we do know. That's
Yes.
why we have to quit saying that. We do know what it is. It is cotton in sample. The sample is
It
cotton.
does not matter. We should study
Why
it.
are we saying we don't know? What don't we know?
I can't know now if it is a neutron radiation, a cotton, or other thing. But it is important to know to date this piece.
Julia, that's what we're saying. If we want to look at that piece in terms of dating, then you need to send it to Bob, and it needs to be characterized as a linen sample, first of all. We don't even know that that's linen. That also might be cotton, but it needs to be.
This sample.
Those,
This sample is at our disposition, I think, for Fondazione 3M.
I would suggest
And-
that if we're going to do something worthwhile, we come up with an action plan that makes some sense in terms of an actual analysis of samples that we really have available, or if we don't have samples available, we come up with an action plan.
A moment. From these samples, I have taken a few threads and fibers that were analyzed, and I have presented the preliminary result at Shroud Science level, so also you have the result. These results are very well compatible with the results obtained from the from the whole part of the shroud, because I have taken many fibers from different areas, and I have compared with chemical analysis, Raman, FTR, and so on, and the fingerprint results the same. So there is no reason to think that this sample is not part of the main shroud. In any case, the main purpose is to date this sample and to show that there is a continuous variation in the date. If I don't think to obtain the first century as a result, but if I took the 80th century, 90th century, it would be a very good result, because it should confirm this contamination due to some factor to be detected, but it should be the basis for a future analysis to be performed by Shroud.
Yeah,
Okay.
might I ask, I'm talking to you, Giulio, I'm going to ask you a question. It seems to me that we have a rare opportunity to access some technology that none of the rest of us could ever access. You have access to reserve a sample, and we have a gentleman from Los Alamos.
No, from Reserva sample. The Reserva is this one, and I have the border of the Reserva. The Reserva is in Turin. This piece, very little, is
Correct.
at the Fondazione 3M.
Okay, that's the 3M piece.
Yes.
Well, but, so you're confident that it's actual linen?
I have studied it resulted linen.
Okay, my suggestion is, since there are things like XPS, and Joe, or Sue, can you give Bob we have an opportunity for
Yes,
additional testing.
yes. Okay.
We hook you up with Bob.
Yes.
Maybe you get the samples to Bob.
Yes.
Let's get some additional data, and we don't have to argue the point.
Yes, I
Because
agree.
the data is what's not arguable.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Makes
and I-
sense?
And I want to say, look, in order to really accomplish something, we have to
Yes.
And in order to work together, we gotta support each other in those areas where we have limitations. Like I stated in my talk this morning, we had limitations in that we had 3 threads. And all 3 threads, according to what was given to me, came from the one sample area. I have to assume that that is correct, on the word of Barry and Sue
And Ray Rogers.
and Ray Rogers. Now, the other limitation we had was that we did not have an actual thread from the actual shroud so that we could
Linen.
use that as a standard. If we could only get one thread from the actual shroud,
See? You
then
can do this.
we could
No.
qualify.
Yes.
We could qualify this, and then we could speak with a lot more confidence in what we need to do in the future. But we have to recognize what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are, what our limitations are. And at the present time, we have access to some of the best equipment in the world.
Right.
But that is only as strong as being able to get standards. And that's why we need to see if there's somebody that can help us so that we can have a standard that we can really
Because Ray Rogers doesn't have this
put our head
material.
on.
The problem is
Well-
this, we are speaking of threads or fibers, because I have many fibers, but very, very few threads. And how much longer?
It doesn't matter to us because we have the sensitivity
They have
and the
enough to go through
resolution
one fiber.
to analyze
Fibers,
a
I can give.
single fiber.
I have fiber in my room. If you want, I can give one.
I'd like to quickly interject something. This is a reminder of what caused the STURF team to be the success that it was. It was a group of multidisciplinary scientists working in unison as a team with a singular purpose that went together, worked as a team, operated as a team, came back and operated as a team until the camera started to roll. But the point simply is this: the idea of cooperation, this is not a competition. If we're competing against anybody, it's the people who control the shroud and won't allow any access to it. So that means we have to work, as Bob said, with what we have. And I know that this is editorializing, but what the heck, I'm already up here. And I just think that there's a necessity to work as a team, even if we're in Italy and we're here, and we have an opportunity to access technology that no other opportunity like this would exist. So, if you have samples, get together with Bob, let's proceed.
Tomorrow morning, I give them.
Tomorrow morning, fair enough.
Let me see, finish.
There's a question.
No.
Oh, okay, no.
Also,
There it is.
When you say qualified,
this is
under control to determine that it's absolutely linen and nothing else, or what do you mean by qualification? Age limit.
If we could get a qualified sample that is aged linen and having a fiber from the main shroud that we could look at, now we can look at the scan on that fiber. We know what linen looks like, but it's not aged like it is in the main shroud. So we need that. And if he can provide it, fine, let's do it, and we'll get together, we will work that.
And then you're working with Los Alamos.
yes.
Not a bad deal.
Also with Rogers.
Of course,
If it is linen, if it's Julian, if it is.
Bob,
if it's not.
I can get you some aged linen, but I don't have access to shroud fibers. You need aged linen?
I would prefer to have a shroud fiber.
Yeah, I can't get you that, but I
Yeah.
can get.
But Julio, you can give it, if you have.
Yeah.
This way, not me, not Sue, you direct.
The question is the
Best.
C14 issue.
I think he needs, some old linen that isn't the shroud.
As well.
As well.
Yes.
Yeah, the more samples, the better. Anybody want
See?
more samples?
Maloney has old linen, but not Sindone. You have Sindone. If he has all this, then you work with Los Alamos, okay? But not me, not with Sue. This is why I told you, remember I told you later, I want you to work with him direct.
The linen I have is probably closer, by Ray's judgment, closer to about 15 to 1300 BC.
This is fun. Everybody gets hot.
It is necessary.
She's Italian, you're Italian. Of course. But we need to work together.
This is important.
What's important, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong.
You know that it's not.
What matters is we find out the truth.
I agree completely.
We just need
Amigo.
to get something.
No, you know,
We can,
I'm very honest. If I think something, I tell you.
It is the only way to proceed.
Of course, because Torinese are not going to give us.
No,
You're not from Turin. I'm not from, I'm
it's
Sturm.
touring can be a problem. Also in this.
Well, but not Turin. Very young.
They have some influence on Trem. This is the
On
problem.
who?
On Trem.
make, to
Trem.
give us more.
Oh, Trian. I'm sorry.
Fondazione.
Capito.
Julio, a question.
That's all we need.
I have a question for Julio.
Excuse me, can I finish?
Well, answer the question, Julia. I'm the moderator.
I finish the question with him. Tomorrow morning, I will give you a fiber coming from the shroud, but it came from the Rigi dust, aspired dust, that I've selected and I recognized as Turin shroud fiber. It is not certificated from Turin, but I can certificate only.
Well, that's okay, because whatever you can do, I want to show.
He's trying to shake your hand.
Let's do it.
All right. Can you imagine, folks, you're attending a conference where something might actually get done?
Julio, the question that I have, if we can get, if you have a sample, I don't know how many threads you have still from the reserve, so-called Reserva, but if you can get to Bob samples from that, so he can qualify it as linen and match it with
Then it helps your work,
H
too.
linen sample, then we know before we send it to C14 sampling, it's not cotton. Do you see what I'm saying? So that is the key point here. If we're going to do C14, we need to characterize whatever we're going to do. That is with the